Hi, I'm Kamali, taking you through the stories people are talking about and sharing around the world on Newsfeed today. It's May Day, so how did it turn from this into this? We'll tell you what China's got against this cartoon pig. We'll give you the story of the 104-year-old who's flying across the world to take his own life. And pelicans refuse diplomas after disrupting graduation ceremony in Malibu. It's animals doing stuff. Well, top of our newsfeed, and it's May Day, so happy first of the month. It's also the International Day for Workers' Rights, and it's the top trending topic around the world in a bunch of languages. Nafisa Lajic now explains how a day that was once a pagan festival is now a day for workers of the world to unite.
May Day has its roots in paganism, as an ancient celebration of the changing season. Now, people in the Northern Hemisphere often celebrated by maypole dancing and wearing flower crowns. Flash forward to the late 1800s, when workers around the world were campaigning for better rights. On May 4th, in 1886, at the workers' rights rally in Chicago, police killed 4 people after someone threw a bomb into the crowd. That was known as the Haymarket Affair, and a few years later, it led to unions around the world declaring the day International Workers' Day. Over the years, it's become a day of protest, and they are often about more than just labor issues. As you can see from these pictures from Jakarta, protesters often wear red, a color used by socialist movements. Also today, things have heated up in Manila, where protesters burned an effigy of the devil meant to represent their president, Rodrigo Duterte. And in case you're wondering, does the phrase May Day have anything to do with the distress? Well, not at all. That comes from the French, and it means help me. That's completely unrelated.
All right, let's take a look at what else is trending on social media. Sweden's official Twitter account has tweeted this out, crediting Turkey with coming up with a recipe for Swedish meatballs. It says they're based on a recipe that King Charles brought back from Turkey in the 18th century. Let's stick to the facts. The tweet's got over 17,000 likes, and I'm guessing they're not referring to the ones you get from IKEA, which are delicious, but I do question the amount of meat actually in them. Kemal Karamollaoğlu is trending worldwide. He's the leader of SPD Felicity Party here in Turkey, and has announced he'll run in the presidential election on the 24th of June. Now for a story about a cartoon family that's got itself into trouble, and for once, it's not The Simpsons. These are the pigs, Peppa, George, Mummy and Daddy, and if you don't know, they're stars of a hugely successful kids show. Hugely successful worldwide, particularly so in China, where it was first broadcast on CCTV back in 2015. And there are plans to build 2 Peppa-themed parks in Beijing and Shanghai. But things have taken a turn for the weird, after Peppa and her likeness have been used by some in China as an image of rebellion and counterculture. Censors have put the kibosh on her name and image, and they've been banned and are now unsearchable on the Chinese internet.
Well, let's see how much snow there is.
Oh, where's Daddy gone? It's a walking snowman.
I'm cold.
It's a walking, talking snowman.
I'm not quite sure how that's meant to be subversive. It's just a guy covered in snow. Now, Patrick Fox in Hong Kong with some more detail on how a cartoon pig ended up being on the banned list in China.
Now, we all know how popular Peppa Pig is in the West, but just to give you an idea how popular the character is in China, well, since being exported for the first time in the early 2000s, more than 100 episodes have been translated and viewed more than 34 billion times on domestic online video platforms. And it's not just kids that love Peppa Pig, but young adults too in China absolutely adore the character, and it appears he's become something of a subculture icon. But the thing that really appears to have gotten authorities into a pickle over Peppa are memes that have been appearing online that have taken on a sexual undertone. And they also seem to have been bothered by pictures that people have been posting of themselves with Peppa tattoos. Now, we're talking about stick-on ones rather than real tattoos, but nevertheless, he's now being regarded as a negative influence and described in Chinese media as a subversive character. This may not surprise some people because this is all part of China's growing regime of censorship, but certainly Peppa's popularity hasn't helped.
Well, Patrick Falk there. Now, a man from Australia is travelling to Switzerland to put an end to his life. Dr. David Goodall is 104 and will go to a place called Dignitas in the city of Basel to kill himself. Now, his decision has reignited the debate in Australia about euthanasia. It's illegal, of course, there. And while Dr. Goodall flies across the world, a man in the United Kingdom will go to court to appeal for his right to end his life at a point of his choosing. His name is Noel Conway, he's 68 and has motor neurone disease. And recently, as a way to get around those kind of laws, an Australian euthanasia activist came up with this.
This new idea of ours, of mine, the Sarco, which is a device to provide people with a death when they wish to die, which is peaceful and reliable, but also elegant and stylish. The person in there would experience a short period of euphoria. Death follows within a few minutes.
Well, I think it's quite silly. It's stupid. I don't get it.
You've got the precious gift of life. You should be able to give that gift away at the time of your choosing.
Now, the question of whether a person should be able to make their own decision about when to end their life if they're living in pain has been one that's been debated for ages. The case for and against euthanasia has been talked about by scientists, theologians and lawmakers for thousands of years. The cases we've just highlighted suggest that discussion will long continue. Now, if you've got thoughts on it, do let us know in the comments below the video. Now, the world has signed a deal with Iran to stop it from getting nuclear weapons. Most of the world thinks the deal is fine and that Iran is complying, but Israel, as you may have seen, doesn't agree. And Donald Trump, President of America, is threatening to cancel it all. Well, that decision will be made in a few days. So while we all wait for the reality TV star to say yay or nay, here's a history lesson on the last 60 or so years of Iran-US beef.
Here are some key moments in the long history of US-Iran tensions. 1953, Iran's then Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh is overthrown in a CIA-backed coup after his efforts to nationalize the country's oil industry. Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, the US-favored Shah of Iran, comes to power. The US supports the Shah with hundreds of millions of dollars of military and economic aid over the next quarter century. 1979, the Iranian Revolution deposes the Shah. Returning from exile, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini seizes power and famously calls the US the Great Satan. That same year, members of a revolutionary group storm and occupy the US Embassy and take 52 American diplomats hostage for 444 days. On April 7, 1980, both countries sever diplomatic relations. That same year, an 8-year-long war between Iraq and Iran breaks out, in which almost 1.5 million people are killed. The US backs Iraq, giving several $1 billion worth of economic aid, military intelligence and training. In 1983, a suicide bomber targets a US Marine barracks in the Lebanese capital Beirut, killing 241 US military personnel. The Iranian-backed Hezbollah is blamed for the bombing and a separate attack on the US Embassy in Lebanon. 1 year later, the Reagan administration lists Iran as a state sponsor of terror. 1990s, Iran is accused of supporting a number of Hamas and Hezbollah attacks in the region. 1995, President Bill Clinton places wide-ranging oil and trade sanctions on Iran. 1997, Iran elects the reformist Mohammad Khatami as president, who later calls on both countries to bring down the wall of mistrust in a CNN interview. the US scales back some sanctions. In 2002, relations sour again as President George W. Bush describes Iran, along with North Korea and Iraq, as an axis of evil, and accuses Iran of engaging in a secret nuclear weapons program. In 2005, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad becomes the Iranian president, and his harsh rhetoric sets the tone for the upcoming years. 2006 to 2010, the US succeeds in getting 4 rounds of UN sanctions passed against Iran. They demand that Tehran stop enriching uranium and exporting weapons, and are pressured with some banking, trade and travel restrictions. 2013, Hassan Rouhani assumes the Iranian presidency. A phone call with then-President Barack Obama on a trip to a UN forum in New York becomes the first conversation between US and Iranian heads of state in 30 years. 2015, Iran and international powers, the US, Britain, China, France, Germany, Russia and the European Union finally sign an agreement called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. In the deal, Iran agrees to heavily restrict its nuclear program in return for significant easing of US, UN and EU sanctions. On January 16, 2016, all nuclear-related sanctions on Iran are lifted in response to fulfilling the key conditions of the agreement. 2017, with Trump's presidency, things get heated again. Travel bans, missile tests, sanctions and insults follow one after another. And now the future of the key nuclear deal is at serious risk. Trump threatens to scrap it if the terrible flaws aren't fixed, although Europe begs the US to keep the deal, and the world will learn the fate of the deal on May 12th.
Now, the UK has a new Home Secretary after the last one was forced to quit. The old one, Amber Rudd, got into loads of trouble after it was revealed some people who arrived in the UK from the Caribbean from 1948 onwards, known as the Windrush generation, faced deportation. The new one is called Sajid Javid, and his father was a bus driver. Here's 5 facts about him. Let's take you around the world for some other stories you need to know this Tuesday. The founder of WhatsApp has quit his job at Facebook. Jan Koen founded the messaging app and moved to the board of Facebook when the social network bought his company out. He posted, "It's time to move on," but did not give any further reasons for his quitting. The online rumour mill suggests it's due to Facebook's recent issues with keeping its users' data safe. The actor Ashley Judd is suing the Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein. Judd spoke up about her dealings with Weinstein and was a leading voice of the Me Too movement. She's suing Weinstein as she says that when she rejected his advances, he adversely affected her career. Now, peace on the peninsula looks to be coming, and as part of it, South Korea is taking down the speakers that blare anti-North propaganda across the border. Now, graduation ceremonies are a time to wear your gown, get your degree, throw your cap in the air and deal with pelicans if you're lucky enough to be graduating from Peppa Pig in Malibu. Now, maybe these two didn't get the grades they were expecting, maybe they were annoyed they were given bad seats at the ceremony. Whatever, they were determined to make as much of a nuisance of themselves as possible. Much bigger than I expected. All right, that's all from the Newsfeed team. Do reach out to me with your questions, comments, complaints and suggestions. I'm at Kamali from Melbourne. You'll find us 24/7 on Twitter, YouTube and Facebook. Follow, subscribe and add. See you again tomorrow.